Welcome everyone to Tips from My Garage. My name is Lisiate Tonga. I am a recovering addict, a father of two beautiful boys, husband to a beautiful wife. I am an author of the ebook Q&A Between Two Addicts and the business owner of a consulting business, Upgrade Version U. And I am also a devout Christian, if you didn't know already. And also, I want to welcome you to 2025. This is the year, as they say, where things can change for the better, where we have to look forward to some big moves, some big risks. And I'm looking forward to this year, especially for those reasons, because one thing I do plan to do in 2025 is to take big risks. And I feel this will be the year that I can make things happen, or I can choose to sit on my hands and let this year go by just like every other year. 2024 was an up and down year. I do feel like I didn't get the most out of the year. I feel like I made a lot of excuses. I didn't put my best foot forward. I wasn't as proactive as I could have been. And so I've had some time to reflect on all of that and to also prepare myself to have a better year in 2025, to take advantage of and make the most of everything, to be more efficient with my timing, to be less distracted. And these are just a few things that I feel like I need to work on personally. I guess I wanted to start that way just because it's the beginning of the year, and I feel like I have to say something about my reflection on the last year and what my hopes are for the year ahead of us. And so with that being said, I do want to talk today about acknowledgement. And I guess when I say acknowledgement, I want to talk about acknowledging or admitting that we have a problem, or that I have a problem, or admitting that you have a problem, which is actually the first step of the addiction recovery program, is to acknowledge that you have a problem, or to admit that you have a problem. And not that you just admit or acknowledge that you have a problem, but that you are also powerless to be able to do anything about it, that you on your own are unable to fix it, to overcome it, to put it behind you. And acknowledgement, or admitting or acknowledging that you have a problem, I believe the reason that it's the first step of the addiction recovery program, and it really should be, is because it's the first part of the journey to recovery. Because if you don't acknowledge that you have a problem, or if you don't admit that you have an issue or a problem, then none of the other steps matter, because you're not going to go through them. And so if this is the jump off point, this is the one where you get the ball rolling, where you start to take those steps towards recovery and begin your momentum. This is the step. And no one really likes to admit that they have a problem. And especially if you have an addiction, no one really sits there and goes, I have a problem with drinking alcohol. I'm an alcoholic. I have a problem with food. I eat too much. I have a problem with sex. I have a problem with pornography. No one likes to admit that they have these kind of issues. And in fact, what they do is they sell themselves a lie that they got it. I got it. I got it. Yeah, it is an issue, but I got it. It's not going to be something that will blow out of proportion. I'm not the same as the other guy. My friends, they're I'm not like them. I have self control. I can choose to stop whenever I want to. I don't know if you've ever heard anyone say that to you, and you might just look at them and go, "Okay, if you say so." But they think that they got it. They I don't know if they really truly believe that they got it, but they need to tell themselves that so that they don't have to admit that they have a problem. And they do try to separate themselves from the masses by selling themselves that lie that, hey, I'm not like the next person. I've got more self-control than they do. This isn't really that big of an issue. I mean, I've only been doing it for so long, and I'm still in control. And the reason why people do that, try to avoid acknowledging or admitting that they have an issues, is because when you admit or when you acknowledge that you have a problem, it it comes with a lot of shame. It comes with embarrassment. It comes with a lot of emotional pain, because it means that what you're really doing is you're accepting responsibility for the poor decisions that you've made in your life. And you are, in fact, the reason that you got to where you are. And those are hard pills to swallow. So it's easier to put it off so that you place the blame elsewhere. And and that's what people do when they don't want to acknowledge that they have problems, because they want to avoid the pain of the shame and the guilt and the taking responsibility for their poor actions and the circumstances that they find themselves in. They've got to blame somebody else or something else. Like, if it wasn't for it's because of this person doing this thing to me, or it's because of that person made me do this. Those are some of the things that people do when they blame other people. They can blame other people. They can even blame it on circumstances or on incidents. For example, if somebody has gone through a traumatic thing, and let me preface it with this, that I'm not disregarding the impact of trauma, especially when it's been inflicted upon people who didn't have a choice in the matter. I'm just saying that even though when people have things done to them, it's it's a it's also a good place to place your blame, to excuse yourself for your actions or the situation that you find yourself in. I've had things happen to me in my life, and perhaps you have had things happen to you in your life, and perhaps they have affected you in such a way that you might feel like you were forced to go in a certain direction or to start doing things, or perhaps you picked up a vice. Maybe you started drinking because this thing happened. Maybe you started being more promiscuous because this thing happened. Maybe you start emotionally eating because this thing happened to you, and you can be justified in it. So that is actually how people justify their circumstances or the situation that they're in, or the behaviors that they have. And everyone else around them could reinforce that and say, yeah, you know what, you have had this happen to you, and the behavior that you're showing now is justified because of those other things that happened to you. You might think that those behaviors are justified the consequences of those behaviors can be detrimental, regardless whether you feel justified or other people around you are justifying you in your actions. For example, if you start drinking because you had something happen to you when you were younger, and then you become an alcoholic, and then you end up homeless on the street, is that the fault of the thing that happened, or do you take any responsibility for the actions that your actions ever since those traumatic things had happened to you? Well, those behaviors still have a consequence, whether those consequences are good or bad. If the behavior is bad, then the consequence is also going to be bad, regardless whether you're justified because of something happening to you in the past. I hope that makes sense. The other consequences to that are, and two really important consequences to that, is that you commit yourself to a lesser quality of life, to a mediocre life, to something that is less than what you deserve. So, and you commit yourself to that. So when you don't take responsibility, and when you don't acknowledge that you have a problem, or you don't admit that you have an issue, then you place the blame somewhere else. And when you place the blame somewhere else, the problem or the issue is then somewhere other than you. And when the problem is somewhere other than you, then you don't have to fix yourself. And if you're not fixing yourself, and you continue with the behaviors that you have, then you're going to reap the consequences of those actions. Because the problem really isn't over there, the problem is with you. Regardless of what has happened to you in the past, you still have a choice. And you might feel like your hand is being forced, or you're being reactive to a set of circumstances that you feel like are outside of your control. You can think that, or you can look at the situation and go, okay, those things have happened to me, but today I still have a choice. In this present time, right now, I can choose to do something different. And so you're not reacting, you're responding. You're taking ownership of your actions, and you can choose to do something differently. But when you don't do that, then the consequence is that you commit yourself to a lesser quality of life, or worse. The other thing is that you're committing your family, your loved ones, your colleagues, your professional life, everyone that you have an influence on, to a lesser version of you, to less than what they deserve of you. So, for instance, if you have children, you're going to give them less of a father than what they deserve. If you're married, you're going to give your wife less than what she deserves out of you as a husband, what they deserve to have as a husband, what your children deserve to have as a father, what your colleagues deserve to have as a colleague, and what your professional life deserves to have from a professional. Your business, what your business deserves of you. And as a result of you not giving the best version of yourself, you can't give yourself more. You restrict yourself from giving yourself from giving yourself more of what life has to offer, or of what these other people, or what your surroundings could give to you potentially. You rob yourself of that. You rob yourself of the joy or the love that your children can give to you. The same with your wife. You rob yourself of the connection, the relationship, the love that you could have in that relationship. There's so many things that you give up when you're giving less than what the people that love you deserve to have. Accepting responsibility and acknowledging that you have a problem and that you are powerless or you can't fix the problem on your own and that you need help is hard. It is something that is difficult to do because of the things that you have to accept with that acknowledgement that your life has gone down the toilet as a result of the decisions that you made. That's a really difficult thing to accept. It's a really difficult thing to admit. And so it requires a certain amount of humility. You know, your pride can get in the way. Your pride is usually what gets in the way. Your ego is what usually gets in the way of recovery, of moving forward. Because your ego won't tell you that you're the problem. Your ego is going to say that you have control over things. That this is, you got this, and that the problem isn't you and the problem is somewhere else. So your ego and your pride are one and the same in this situation. They're both going to be too they're going to be too great for you to accept that you made poor decisions in your life. And so the way that you have to combat your ego and your pride is to have some humility, is to be humble, is to accept, surrender yourself, to be submissive, to surrender yourself. Just allow yourself to be vulnerable. Allow yourself to accept that you made poor decisions, you got you to where you're at, and that it's all your fault. And that's hard to do, but it's doable. You just have to be humble. You have to approach it with humility. You have to let go of your ego. You have to let go of your pride. You know, you might think you're strong for holding on and saying, "Oh, I've got this," but really the strength comes in being vulnerable, in being able to admit that you're powerless to do anything about it. You're stronger to be vulnerable enough to admit that you were wrong. Having pride and having ego get in the way is being, if you allow those things, you're not actually coming from a position of strength. You're actually approaching it from a position of weakness. Pride and ego is not strength. Pride and ego are trying to protect you from being hurt. But being vulnerable allows you to be hurt, but it takes courage and strength to do that. And so it's not an easy thing to do. And I get that. I mean, I've gone through my own issues with struggling with my pride and my ego. And the problem is that as a result of my pride and ego getting in the way, I stayed in that life for way too long and lost years of my life as a result. And had I just been more humble, had I been more vulnerable and allowed myself to accept that I was wrong and that I made bad decisions, you know, who knows where I would be now. But you know, it is what it is, and I am here right now, and I'm grateful for this journey that I'm on, and I'm grateful for the life that I have, and I'm so blessed. The amount of joy that I've felt over these past 10 years, say maybe even 15 years of my life, 14 years of my life, ever since I started my journey to recovery, I've been blessed. And so I know a little bit about accepting responsibility. I know a little bit about allowing my ego and pride to get in the way of things. And I'm just telling you now that you can get to where you need to go quicker by just being more vulnerable, by just having a bit more humility and just accepting things. And then once you can accept responsibility for your actions, then you can start to move forward. Then the ball starts rolling. Then the momentum starts to move and the shift starts to happen. But until you can do that, it's you're at a standstill. You won't move because then the blame is somewhere else. the problem is somewhere else. You're not the issue. Someone else, some other thing is the issue, and then you never get to fix yourself, and then everyone else suffers as a consequence, including yourself. I think accepting responsibility is hard, but it won't be as hard as the pain that you will cause yourself by staying on the destructive path. And it also won't be as bad as the pain that you'll cause your loved ones in your life. I remember once when I was talking to my mom on the phone when I was still in that other world, and she would say to me, it's not me that's staying up at night watering my pillow with tears over you. It's your father. Your dad is the one who stayed up night after night just crying and crying over you, praying, fasting. And I never actually thought it would have been my dad that would have suffered all those years. And I'm sure that my mom, my family had gone through it. And I know that there's a lot of you out there that know this feeling when you have a loved one that is suffering, and the suffering that not just that they're going through, but that you're going through, as a result of the bad decisions that they're making. There's a lot of suffering going on. I get messages, I get phone calls all the time, people saying, "Hey, can you help my kid? Can my kid's doing this, my kid's doing that. Can you please help?" And so I know that there are families out there that are suffering, and I know that I've caused my own family pain. It makes me sad every time I think about that, the pain that I caused my family for the life that I led. And I know that a lot of you out there are feeling that as well. I know a lot of you are in that mix. You're either directly affected or you're indirectly affected. Either you are in it, or someone that's close to you is in it. And so we're all connected in one way or another. We're all feeling this. I want to help now. I want to help people to move past that. I want to help families to heal. I want to help people to heal. I want them to to change the trajectory of their life and start moving in a positive direction that's going to affect not just their lives but their loved ones for the better, so that they can be content, so that they can be happy again, so that they can have joy, so that they're not shackled by these vices that they're pulled down by. And that's, I guess, why I'm so passionate about what I do, is because I know the amount of pain that I've gone through and the pain that my family has gone through as a result. I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want other people to suffer like that. And so I want to help people to get through their dark times, through their not just through their dark times, but get them onto a path that's full of hope, because they have clarity, they have direction, they know what they want, they know what's necessary, they know what they have to do. And you know acknowledging isn't an easy thing to do, but it is absolutely necessary for you to be able to start on that path to recovery and to hope and healing. I hope you got something out of this episode. If it has, let me know. If there's anything that I could do better, let me know. I'm always keen to hear feedback. I'm grateful for this opportunity I have to share this with you, and grateful for you, anyone out there listening. And if this strikes a chord with you and it helps out in any way, then hey, it's been well worth it for me. And with that being said, I'll see you on the next episode. 1, 2,